I don't hope that. Alright, are we live? We are live. Okay. So, good, well, for me it's afternoon here in the central U.S. time zone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Spence from TEN Evening News, and we're bringing you the first actual TEN news headlines broadcast in, well, about 4 years. So this is also a new format. We really didn't stream it before. We always just kind of, we did a, what's it called? We did a podcast, and we put out a podcast. But now, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to look at my ugly mug. Maybe I'll change this at some point. I'll just put my my Eve character picture up there, my Aridus Ganel picture, and you guys can look at that so you don't have to look at my fat, ugly face. But in the meantime, until we get all that set up and until I apologize for this mic. I'm using a headset because my my Pro mic is in storage, and I got to go pick that up this week. Anyway, I'll be changing that over this week as well, so that way you guys can the sound quality will be a little bit better. But anywho, here we are. Today we're going to be talking about some news, just like we used to do if you used to watch the show back years ago. How TEN Evening News works is we'll kind of skim through the headlines. We'll skim through the stuff that's going on in the world, and we will try to bring you some condensed version of that with a little bit of commentary, and we'll also bring on occasionally some other people to discuss it as well. You know, some of our subject matter experts that we get in touch with, whatever. Maybe somebody that was there if it's an event that happened, you know, a war, something like that. However, until we get that built back up again, it's basically just going to be going through the headlines, not one by one. I don't have the patience for that. I know you guys don't either, and you wouldn't be listening to this if you did. So what we're going to do is we'll go through this a bit. I'm going to give you kind of my oh, okay. I'm sorry. Something just popped up. Discord does that. Apologies, guys. Discord popped something up and it distracted me. It was like a little shiny thing. I was like, whoo. So, anyway, what we'll be discussing today, the main headlines we're going to be discussing today is some of the things that we saw pop up in the CSM 13 minutes that have been posted. Council of Stellar Management, for those of you who, if you're a newer player to the game or you don't follow things outside just what you do in the game, in the greater world of Eve, there is something called the Council of Stellar Management. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're going to talk about some articles we found on the Imperium News Network. Really good little website. I like this. These guys put out some decent articles and whatnot. So we'll be talking about their article that Moomin wrote about test deploy first ever high sec keepstar, and then a couple other things. Looks like the Bombers Bar guys went and smacked around some goons. There's been some more stuff going on with all these high-sec war decks that happen all the time, and that'll also be covered in CSM because that became a kind of a touchy point as well. And we're going to go over the October release, what's going on with that. That came out about 6 days ago. So, to start off, we're going to talk about the Council of Stellar Management. Council of Stellar Management, like I said, for those of you who do not know what it is, Council of Stellar Management is the player... Oh, I don't want to call it Parliament because their power is so limited. Let's call it an advisory board. Okay, it's an elected advisory board where members from around Eve will be elected for 1 year, elected by the other players, elected for a 1 year term in which they get to go to Reykjavik and meet with the CCP guys and have discussions about things that they think are problems, get updates, behind the scenes updates that can be put out, and kind of keep the lifeline open between the developers of the game, CCP, and the player base. Now, for most players, the CSM is it's like an anachronism. The people really don't really like whatever. It's just a group of people that are going to get a chance to fly to Reykjavik and hang out for a few days and on CCP's bill and waste time basically. Yes and no. There's not many games out there, and I've said this before in the past. There's not many games out there, companies, many gaming companies that allow for something like a CSM to happen, where they all talk the big game of, we want to stay in touch with our players. We have these special forums. You can submit support tickets, and we'll get back to you in a certain amount of time. That's their job. That's a game company. There's not many that will say, okay, we want a group of you guys every year to be elected, and because you're going to be elected mostly by your block, your group. The nullsec guys, the goons will put somebody up, the test will put somebody up, the pandemic quarter they'll put somebody up, and then sometimes you get the people from the other places too, the popular people, maybe the popular blogger or video maker or whatever, and they'll try to get in, and they do, and they have an opportunity to go in and sit down with these guys and say, hey, we're not just a support ticket on the other end of an email. We're real people. So I actually give CCP kudos for that, because it's a system that, despite looking at it and saying they're not going to really listen to these guys, it does help to remind the developers that we're real people, that the players are real people, and vice versa. It gives the players a chance to actually meet the people that are making this game and trying to keep it going. Because yes, for them it is a job and they're getting paid to do this, but in order for them to do a better job so they can keep their jobs, they need to keep their client base happy. That's us, right? Even with the whole alpha clone thing, it's still us as a whole, right? So that being said, the CSM isn't, while it's not a perfect situation, what is? You know what I mean? What is? So some things that I'm going to kind of skim through it. There's 53 pages of notes in the CSM 13 minutes that came out. I'm not going through all of this, all right? It's just not happening. But there are a few things in here that did pop up that are, I thought, were important. The reoccurring theme we see all the time with this is war deck issues. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of read through this quickly. I'm not going through the whole section. In the EVE leadership meeting, the CSM was presented with numbers resulting from research into the state of war declarations in EVE, and those numbers quite starkly showed how asymmetric the situation is, and how war declarations allow a small number of players to negatively affect a huge number of people with low risk. These numbers may be discussed further by CCP at a later date. Basically, what's going on with this is people are saying, if you look at how war decks work, and a few years ago, war decks were reworked because they were even worse than they are now. But what was going on was let's just throw war decks out constantly, and there was corps out there. They were alliances and corps that said we're just a war deck corp or a high sec war deck corp. Well, that's never gone away. That's still out there. You can have any you could be in a high sec corp that does nothing but newbie mine, and eventually you're gonna fly past somebody on your way to Jeddah or whatever, and somebody's gonna do a pilot info on you and see what corp you're in. They'll say, oh, there's like 8 of those guys, let's war deck them, because it really doesn't affect them to do it. All it does is it kind of causes some grief. So what they're saying is this has to be looked at again. There's got to be a better way to do this, because war decking it's still broken. It's still broken. Now, again, if any of you guys that are in chat or whatever disagree with me, please, let's talk about it. That's the whole purpose of all this. Let's talk about it. We want to have discussions about this. I'm not saying I'm perfect, that I know everything about this game. This is more, my goal is to get people talking about things. That's always been my goal. Back when we used to do the roundtables, we do stealth bomber roundtables, we did faction warfare roundtables, we did all these different roundtables. We got the CSM candidates on, and we interviewed them in the past and let them kind of have a little open forum, almost like a debate, but more of an open forum with guided topics. And it worked, because I'm not sitting here telling you how EVE should be made or played or anything like that. I'm just bringing up the questions, and we're going to let people talk about it, so that way everyone feels a little more informed. I'm the tour guide. That's it. So going back to this, CCP begins the session by saying that the devs have some ideas on how to address the war deck system, and wants to give an update on where they stand in scoping those out. This is not intended to be a presentation on upcoming changes, but rather to have a discussion. So basically the way I'm seeing this when I read through it is CCP is acknowledging war decks aren't where they need to be. They're working on some things. They're not completely sure that they have the definitive answer, and they're looking for, there's going to be some feedback there. It was pointed out that nullsec is not affected by the war mechanics, and a war hasn't been declared between entities for years. This is affecting more the newbie corporations in high security space, but it also does affect newbies headed for null who want to join the corp while in high sec and lose all their assets during travel to the war deckers. This issue is magnified by the fact that the game doesn't communicate wars well. So that really is true, and the lifeblood of EVE Online is not the old players, not those of us that are showing off our little, birth date on our clone for 2004 or whatever. It's the new players that are being injected through this alpha clone system. Okay, it's those guys that we want to get to stick around, the new folks, because they're the ones that are going to keep this game going and hopefully move it forward a little bit. It's been around forever. It's still fun, right? So getting an injection of new blood is important from a player standpoint. From a company standpoint, it is make or break. They need new blood, right? Eventually people move off and move on or decide they're not going to play computer games anymore. But a thing that's always been a trend with EVE Online is a lot of new players and people that we probably really would have loved to have in the computer in the game not sticking around. They're in it for 2-3 days. Somebody can flips them, somebody does something stupid, they say fuck this and they leave. Now I get it. Oh, grow a thick skin. Yeah, I get all that. The problem is there's mechanics in the game right now that can be abused to make whole swaths of new people say, I don't even want to do this. This is not fun. Okay? So let's talk about some things that aren't fun that this is addressing, and this will also go into the whole new player experience that they're also talking about. Number one is you've got the griefers in high sec. Now, okay, I'm not care bearing, okay, but that's where all new players come in, right? Unless they come in and right away they meet somebody that's in a large nullsec alliance that says, hey man, I'm going to bring you over with us. We're going to teach you some cool ways to play the game, right? Other than that, they throw them in a rifter and let's go have some fun. Other than that, most people have there's kind of a path that you go on in EVE, right? You as it stands right now. You join in, you log in for the first time, you do some of the Aurora quests, or you do some of the guided questing through the new player experience. You get your money, you get your cool ships, they get you basically up to flying a destroyer, and then from there you're on your own, right? Once that happens, it's like, well, what do you do? Well, a lot of people either end up running missions or they end up mining, right? So mining, while some people can find it cathartic, can get boring pretty quickly, unless somebody's got the goal of, I want to get into this huge, my orca or my whatever. They want to do that stuff. Okay, cool, fantastic. However, getting to that point can be quite a challenge. Now, I understand. I don't want anybody screaming at me, Spence, you're such a care bear, you're a pussy. That's not what this is about. I'm looking at it from new people coming in. New people coming in to experience the game. Not everyone comes into the game saying, I want to join this game I just found, EVE Online, because I want to get ass raped in a belt so that way I can learn how to go do that to other people. Some people just want to come in and they want to mine. They want to build ships. They want to supply us with ammo. They want to do all that stuff. That's fantastic. If that's what they want to do, whatever. Cool. However, that being said, when there's an intentional attitude among some out there that they're just going to go the path of least resistance and grief newbies, that's an issue, right? So this whole war decking thing's part of it. If you have, I'm going to take a look right now. I want to see something. I want to see if I could look it up. Bear with me one second. I'm looking something up here. Wars, all wars. Right now, so I'm just as you can see on my screen, I'm just kind of pulling up like the wars list, okay? Which again, it's clunky as hell, but I'm trying to see if we're looking through this. First of all these groups that you see, right? The majority of them are people you've never heard of. Okay? But at the same note, you're going to start seeing repetitive names, okay? Because they're war deck groups. That's all they do. That's all they do. They go around and they war deck. And they think this is so much fun. That's all they do. Now, I'm not calling out that one in particular. I'm just showing that their name is popping up all over here. Okay? So, the whole point of this is it creates an atmosphere for new players that everywhere they go, they're looking over their shoulder. Okay, again, throwing that caveat again. I get it. It's Eve. It's space. It's dangerous. Fantastic. But when you're afraid to join a corporation because that little 10-man corp that all they do like to do is go out to 08 space and mine and hang out and talk on their Discord channel and just be bros, and when they're done at the end of the day, they take their ore and they ship it off, and or maybe they build some stuff and put it up on the market. Okay, why war deck them just because? Why war deck them just because, right? There's no need for it. This goes back to like the Ice Wars back in the day, right? Like, what was the whole purpose of it? Well, it was, some of it was market control and the rest of it was just griefing. So it becomes an issue at that point, right? So what the CSM and what CCP are saying here is CSM saying, yeah, we agree it's a problem, and CCP saying, all right, well, we're working on it. We don't know exactly what the best way to go about it is. Now, CCP Fozzie, and he's a great guy, by the way. Fozzie's been around forever. Fozzie goes on to say that everyone seems to agree that this system is broken, but there are many opinions on how it is broken. Not how to fix it, just on how it is broken. So again, like, I'm presenting this saying it's obviously broken. I'm sure everyone, even the war deck groups, will agree, like, hey, this system's broken. We use it to our advantage, but yeah, this is broken. I remember having a talk with Alex Card about 4 years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, when they overhauled war decks last time, and it actually made mercenary groups beneficial. It actually pulled them up into a position where they could, this is back when Alex was on the CSM, I think, where it was actually allowed them to be a mercenary clan in a proper way. Right? So requesting aid came about and all that, which was new at that time. But it allowed them to put the word out there to these little groups to say, if you get war decked and you need some help, put out the call and we'll bid on the contract and we'll come help you out. Okay? So that was cool. That was definitely a step in the right direction. However, again, with this injection of like alpha clones over the past year and whatnot, all these new players, there's still people that walk away from this game. You can go read the reviews. People that walk away from this game and they basically say, F the game. Screw this. I don't want to be a part of this because of the constant griefing and war deck that happens. Okay? Now, that being said, it does help to make you a better player. All right? When you're out there and you're constantly, scanning local and whatnot. But if you're a new player and you don't know anything about that, it's kind of hard to learn it on your own. Okay, Eve does have that high learning curve. We all know it's basically a straight shot up. There's no little hill to climb. But things have to be done to try to change that. So CCP Fozzie asks what the CSM pictures when they think about a hypothetical future improved war deck system as well as a hypothetical worse war deck system for contrast. Jintan mentions war objectives which can be achieved. Suetonia feels that it needs to be tied more to structures and that they're currently sorry, it's grammar here. I'm gonna change it. That currently there is no real way to retaliate against a corp that war decks you. And Innominate feels a great war deck is two groups of equal sizes fighting and not playing de-aggressing games. Fozzie points out that the current war system partly caters to smaller groups declaring war on the larger groups, and Aerith states that the bigger groups never care about the smaller group unless they specifically place a structure around their place. Fozzie asks about the size difference between the corporations involved and what the CSM feels about it. Jintan and Sort Dragon point out that while the Deckers may be outnumbering / oppressing the victim, it's more so because they are selecting their targets and looking for the easy wins. An example is mentioned. An industrial player undocks from Jeddah and gets attacked by 5 War Deckers in their Logi alts. This makes Innominate point out that assistance from those who are not party to the war needs to be addressed. The judge brings up a discussion he had with players where players were trying to use the war deck system in the quote-unquote right way. High sec is so unbalanced and one-sided due to the defenders having a structure, which is less an issue in null sec. The topic of mutual war decks comes up, and the table agrees that mutual wars need to remain in the game. So I'm going to skip through the rest of this here. Whole point right there is the war decking system definitely still needs an overhaul. After all these years, it is still definitely not a system that most people can agree on and say, yeah, it works. Okay. Again, there's whole areas like they're saying the nullsec guys they don't even really bother with the system, and in highsec it is such a problem that there's just the whole middle ground is there's nowhere to meet in the middle right now. So I'm going to skip through the economy section. ESI meets with Team Tech and friends. Not going to worry about that. Live events. Not going to talk about live events. New player experience. This is what I want to get to. So new player experience. I'm on like page 16 of 53 of this of the CSM minutes. Any of you guys that are just joining us right now, welcome to the room. I ask you please throw me a follow on there. We appreciate when you do that. Helps me keep you up to date in the news. It'll give you a heads up whenever we go live. Electrical Longboard, Lazo, and Siatre, thanks for hopping in and listening. Do appreciate it. And again, feel free to talk. Give us a chat. I'm going to throw a hello out there to you guys. Again, we're going to be going over some other topics besides the CSM today. I'm going to be doing this probably for about another hour and a half or so, this stream. And all this is right here, all you're seeing with my little ship spinning right here, it's just kind of a placeholder. I'm sitting in an Empire on a station because we're not really doing anything in game today other than talking about meta stuff such as the news. So, going back over this. So, new player experience. CCP Affinity starts the meeting by talking about the new player experience, which was released shortly before the summit. CCP Affinity talks about getting players into the game quicker, removing the bulk of text and focus more on what the players need to learn and introduce them to a player choice and the agency. Okay, so speaking of the agency, I'm going to pull this up here, because I don't think I've ever done it on this dude. No, I know I haven't done it on this guy. So, you got this, right? I'm sitting over here in 0.6 space right now, near domain. So anyway, I can go over here, and I can do these. Let me see if it gives it to me. Like military career path, security agent, military career path. There's the business career path, and so on and so forth. Now, on one of my other tunes, when I came back on a couple weeks ago, I said, you know what? I'm just going to try this out and see how it works. And I got to be honest with you, from someone who started the game in 2004. And remembering what I went through as a new player, trying to figure out what to do to survive and to make the game actually happen, it's like night and day. Okay, so the new player experience, I like it. I think it's pretty cool. I do agree. There's way too much reading. It's there needs to be something. They need some voice acting going on in there or something. But it's not. There's not real grabby, right? And some of it really doesn't make sense. Like I think it's the industrial line or the business line. You're supposed to be doing the industrial business line, but what they have you doing is going out and fighting pirates. Okay, I get it. It's EVE. It's spaceship combat. But at the same time, that's what the combat and the advanced combat sections are for. There's some other things they could have focused on, research and things like that. They could have done in those lines to kind of make it more interesting, especially since those are the areas that generally don't get looked at a lot by newer players because they look at it and they say, that's complicated. For a lot of new players to come in and click like the industry thing and to throw I don't even know if I got any blueprints on this guy. I mean, again, he's like my podcaster alt. But anyway, to be able to sit here, I don't even have any blueprints, and do this, and yeah, it's not hard, but not a lot of people understand it because it's not talked about a lot. Furthermore, there is, right now in the economy, in most of the places you're going to do manufacturing, it's almost not worth it because you've got the big guys out there that like have total monopolistic power over things, and they drop those prices down to the fact that unless you're mining everything yourself, or you're part of a large group that can do it with you, you really can't be like a small time industrialist. Okay, that's fine. I understand. There are guys out there, number one, who do it, and they're the exception that proves the rule. And number two, it encourages people to be part of some type of a corporation or alliance so that they have that teamwork, that conglomeration. That's the point of it, right? I totally get it. But there needs to be something to encourage people to do it. Like, you need to be able to learn how to do it by yourself so that way you'll want to do it more. Let me see here. So, Cypher! I see Cypher popped in. What up, buddy? I love when my moderators pop in the channel and call me gay. Bro, I saw you were playing World of Warcraft, so who's gay now? World of Warcraft for real, bro? What happened? Was your mom online or something? Was Sean's parents online and you needed to go play with them? I'm just kidding, man. It's good to see you. I love you, brother. So Cypher's one of our resident goons, and he is one of the wow. Cypher's been podcasting and doing news with Eve longer than I have, longer than most people have. He goes all the way back. Cypher, what was your first one? Was it Angry Monkey podcast? Was that the first one, or were you on something before that? Let the chat know. Anyway, he's a good friend of mine, so when you see him in there making fun of me, he's allowed. He's allowed. He's one of my bros. So he's probably surprised as hell to see me back in here doing this, because the last time I did Eve podcast was right before the Russians hacked our Tactical Entertainment Network website and took everything down, and I basically walked away and I said, screw this shit, I'm done. And that was quite a while ago. However, I got bored. Rob, I'm bored. I got all this time off in between things to do at work, so here I am. I decided I was going to sit around and talk about stupid internet spaceship games again. And I'll have my new mic, my other mic here in a few days. I got to go get it out of storage. So 2008, there you go. Cypher's been doing this for about 10 years. Okay, off and on for about 10 years. He was instrumental in helping get TEN Evening News off the ground. He was instrumental in being one of the founders of Podside when Podside was around. It was me, him, and what was that other dude? That homo you used to hang out with, the Comcast installer guy that thought he was Mr. Podcast. I forget what his name was. He runs Multiplex Gaming. What was his name? And he was involved in a lot of other ones too. So Cypher's always been quite a fun guy. So I like seeing him pop on. So let me continue on here with that's it. Far from puking. That's it. So I think he still plays. I know Podside kind of went the way of the dodo. So anyway, let me sorry for that aside, guys. If any of you guys are old school listeners, then you know that happens all the time. Whenever Cypher or any of the other guys are on, we'll go down a rabbit trail, and it can get long and dangerous. But going back to this new player experience, I think for these new players, all these Alpha Clone guys coming in, people coming to try the game and say, I'll give Eve another look, even though they've heard all the hate and the scary things about it through the years. If they follow through that, what's it called? The Aurora thing, or whatever the hell it's called in the agency, and they do those, it can give them at least a decent handling of the game from I'm going to roam around 0.9 space, and do some missions, or do some light mining, or whatever else they're going to do. They can handle that based off of that. However, from there it kind of goes weird, kind of goes sideways on them. Let's see. So CCP Affinity talks about getting players into the game quicker, removing the bulk of text and focus more on what players need to learn, and introduce them to a player choice and the agency. The issue with the old system was that it was too linear and didn't introduce players to Eve, and was too expensive to maintain or expand on. I'm assuming that means from CCP's angle. She shows graphs which branch out into areas which they want to introduce to the new system down the line. Steve Ronikin points out that the fitting aspect is something they really need to focus on, and CCP Affinity says that is something CCP wants to discuss with the CSM later in the meeting. Fitting, I'm assuming they're meaning ship fitting, because a lot of people just don't even realize how to do that, or the benefits of doing it. Right now, it's one of those things that you look up online and you say, how do I fit my rifter for tackling, and you'll go online and there'll be a bunch of information on that, and you can do it, or you can use one of the there's programs and websites you can use for that as well. But it's one of those things, if you don't know to ask, you don't know to use, right? That's all you need, is somebody coming at you with like civilian lasers thinking that there's some badass pirate, and then only to find out that that's not so. Check chat. Sean, is Sean even playing Eve anymore, bro, or is he still in Farm Simulator? Let's see here. Yeah, last time I tried talking to Sean, I left him messages. He never responded to me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm talking to Cypher. Was putting some messages in chat there. She goes on. Let's see. Skill rewards were added this time around to delay the tutorial for skill training. as that is a rather complicated system, but instead simply inject the skills in a trained state. Yeah, that's helpful. She goes on to say that the team wants to focus on pain points in Eve through telegraphing and visual feedback. One of those immediate changes was adding the damage types to the combat notifications. Definitely a help. That's something for new players that it's just never explained. There's nothing in any of the tutorials that talks about who does what damage type, what they're vulnerable to. It's one of those things that you just kind of find out. And one of the ways I found out years ago was I clicked on some pilot's portrait and did a show info, and I read their biography. And in the biography was like, Serpentis and Galente, and it said like what kind of damage they do and what they're weak to. And I was like, that's fantastic. And then I cut and pasted that into my biography. And it was one of those things. It's like, if you think about it now, you're like, why do you have to do that? Why does it have to be that complicated? Potential upcoming changes include an aura voiceover. Something Eve has needed since the beginning is voiceovers. They need that. When you're getting a mission, when you're doing certain things, it would be for the PvE content in the game. You definitely need, and instead of just sitting there trying to read that small-ass squirrely text, somebody telling you what you got to do. That would help. Potential upcoming changes or voiceover, a rookie ship button which will become a station service rather than having an automated insurance system that spews out rookie ships. Okay, that makes sense. So when you come back in your pod, you click a button and it issues you one. It's like a ship vending machine. Jintan asks if removing a racial lock on the Corvettes is possible due to Sino ships and cargo hold. The judge suggests just bringing all the rookie ships in line with each other. Some good suggestions. CCP Infinity says that the industry path for the NPE was not ready at release, but will be coming. Yeah, because right now, other than the combat and the advanced combat, everything else is kind of wonky. Like, it gives you a brief introduction, but it's really wonky. Sean's all over the place like an 8-mile hooker. Well, when you see him, buddy, tell him I said hi. Tell him he's got to pop in and flop his head around a little bit in here. So maybe if he wants to come play with my porpoise, he can come find me and he can play with my porpoise. He can sit there and tell his stories in mine, and I'll sit there with my porpoise and I'll flick boosts at him. Let's see here. She then goes on to say that a revision of the fitting tutorial will be added at a later time. Okay, so here's about the fitting stuff, guys. She then goes on to say that a revision of the to the fitting tutorial will be added at a later time and requires some input on the best way to implement that. Jintan suggests having pre-saved fits, but CCP Affinity says that one of the issues they are facing is players understanding how to fit modules on their ship, and they would still have to solve this even if they provided pre-save fits. Yeah, that's true. That would be more of a crutch. A tutorial would be better. Would definitely be better, and that can be injected into the system as it is. As you go through the agency missions, 1 through 10, whatever it is, make one of them fitting. Just make it a fitting thing. And right now it's very simple. There's something in there for it, but it's like, we're going to give you this item, take it and fit it, put it online, and come back and you're done. That does not help. That doesn't talk about having fitting units that work together. Having different modules that help each other out. Again, this is just a newbie ship with all the civilian crap. But having different things on your ship that complement each other, and what skills to use to make those the most effective. All right, that's something that's really not gone over, and it's our fitting system in Eve is really such a beautiful, elegant system when you get down to it, because you can really fine-tune any of these ships to exactly how you want it if you've got the skills and the money, right? And I mean in-game money. I don't mean real money. But if you have the ability to do it, you can really fine-tune your ship to something beautiful. Until I met the guys, the multiplex gaming guys, when I was doing TEN Evening News and all that, and I went to Rome a couple times with Cypher, and he was like, and I was like, man, I don't know if I've got the right skills for this. I've never really, done this stuff. And he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, all you need is a rifter, and you can be a tackle. That's it. You just need a rifter. Come on. And it was amazing seeing these guys who know these systems, and that's why they're in these huge, amazing nullsec corporations. That's all they do is this kind of stuff. Is they make it work. Is taking these new people and throwing them in these basic ships, and they're saying you're going to be fine. You're going to be in a big battle here in a few minutes, and you just started the game 3 days ago. So it's cool, but how many people get to know that? Not many, because they come in, they do their thing, they're a little tentative because it's a new game, so they're not really talking to people, and next thing you know, they're saying "F this, I got screwed over." So, let's see here. Check chat real quick. Yeah, Cypher says I have forgotten more now than I learned. Same here, man. I have forgotten more about EVE Online than I know, and that's just, I mean, 14 years of this game, 14 years of it. But some of the things that they are doing are definitely making it worth checking out. And even for the comebacks, guys like us that, you know, kind of float off and then come back and float off and come back. If you're coming back, don't be afraid to come back and try that new player experience. If nothing else, it's gonna refresh your love of the game, because you'll play and you'll be like, all right, yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, I got to learn some things. You're gonna want to go do what you did before, I'm sure, but you know, like instantly when I came back, the first things I wanted to do was I started looking at what was going on in faction warfare, because I was big. Faction warfare was just becoming a thing. TEN Evening News was a big supporter of it. We worked with the Fwetic guys a lot. We were really into the faction warfare thing. It was kind of one of my loves. And now I look at it, I'm like, oh, I'd love to do it, but it's not how it used to be. Okay, but there's only certain aspects of EVE I really haven't experienced. I've never been a really big explorer. I never really just wanted to go around in a cloaky ship and discover things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it just wasn't me. And I've never been a mission runner, and I've never gone into wormhole space. I think I went into a wormhole once with Cypher, as a matter of fact. We blew somebody up and we left. And after that, I was like, all right, let's go do something else. So, you know, let's go. We'll flip a zone for faction warfare or something. But never really been into the wormhole thing. It doesn't make it bad. I know people. I've got a friend who's been playing now for almost as long as we have, and that's all he does for the past like 7 or 8 years. He's just wormholes. He wormholes the shit out of this game. So, you know, and he lives on them. Like his little corp go in and they park in a wormhole and they make it theirs until they get booted out. Okay, getting back on topic here. Aerith feels that the first 30 days should simply be preloaded, whether that is ships or skill training, so that the players simply don't have to worry about it or their general progress. Sutonia says that there should be skills that are rated as newbie friendly or advanced skills, so that they don't look at a skill like armor layering and think it's something really cool, whereas it's totally useless for new players. This game is that complex that the new player experience is going to be a constantly evolving project. Sword Dragon feels that players should just get more skill points and go have fun. CCP Affinity feels that, having tested this before, the unlocking progression is also a factor which pulls players in. Sorry, my garbage men are outside. That's why you hear slamming stuff. There's also a factor which pulls players in. Giving them too much in the start would remove that factor. I agree with Affinity on that one. You gotta be careful how much of the carrot you dangle out at the end of the stick. Jinton adds that removing some barriers of entry would still be something to consider. True. Briskerball feels that the players are hitting goals in the game and making progress without having to wait too long because between each progression or achievement. Affinity mentions World of Warcraft, where a player sees signs of progress in the first 5 minutes, whereas in EVE the time is too long. Merkel Chen feels that the progression should be more focused on ships rather than skills. Sword Dragon notes that skill points are so boring as a level up. Yeah, I get that. And that's really, I mean, that's always been a thing, is kind of looking toward... Sword Dragon can go fuck off, Rob says. Skill points as your progression has always been kind of a boring system. I mean, nobody sits around, and if you do, you're weird. I'm going to say it. Nobody sits around saying, man, I cannot wait for, Cloaking 4 to be done in 2 days. Man, I'm so excited about that. But what they will do is they'll sit and look through the market and they'll look at a ship that requires Cloaking 4 or whatever and say, I cannot wait to fly that thing. Can't wait to fly it. Now, I know they go hand in hand, but the whole point of it is that if the point of this is to get into a ship, to fly around and do things, and then to get other ships, then that's where the focus should be, right? That's really where the focus should be. So, Rob put a link in here. I'm afraid to click this. Oh, God, what's it say? Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Cypher. Wow. Yeah, I'll be getting all that back up too, man. I'll be getting my tweet fleet and all that other stuff back up as well. So I appreciate it. Um, so let's see here. Consolidating all the rookie systems in Concord space to create more activity was suggested. Don't know about that. All right, I'm not going to go through the rest of that stuff. Customer support team and policies, I'm not even going to talk about it. I will tell you this. I had a really good experience with the customer support team, okay? Not kissing ass here. This is legitimate, solid, positive feedback, okay? Senior GM Hugan, I had submitted a ticket request because when I tried to get back into my account, it had said your account is banned for illegal activity. And I said, what? So I sent an email off, and I said, hey guys, I know you guys usually don't undo bans. Most game companies don't. However, let me talk a little bit about who I am, what I've done, and why there's obviously something wrong here, and let's see if we can do something about it. And I explained I used to be a podcaster. I did a lot of the metagame stuff. I mean, I was kind of name dropping some of the CCP devs that we've had on the show in the past. I said I'm coming back, and I'm not really coming back so much to play the game, which I know is really weird to say, but in EVE, I mean, Cypher will vouch for this. I play EVE by sitting here talking to you guys. This is me playing EVE. This is how I do it. I talk about news. I talk to the players. That's what I like to do. I'm like a nerdy ass game reporter. I don't know how else to put it. But this is playing EVE to me. All right, I'll go out on roams. I'll take my stealth bomber out with bomber bar once in a while. I'll do all that fun stuff on my alts. But I'm not. My main thing is sitting here doing this, getting people to talk, getting conversations going, talking about different topics, finding out what's going on with the big player organizations out there, things like that. Okay. But when I brought that up and I said, like, hey, if there's anything we can do, I've had this character since 2004, since July 5th of 2004. Could you please, is there anything that can be done? Can you tell me what happened? I'm not even asking if all my stuff is gone, all my specialty ships. I had billions and billions and billions in ships and billions and billions and billions in ISK. And I was like, I understand if that's all gone. I get it. It's no problem. I just want my character. I want that account back. I want those characters that are on there because that's who people know me through. Okay, and it took about almost 10 days, but I finally got an email back from a senior GM, Hugan, and he was real polite and he wanted to make sure that I was actually who I said I was. He looked at everything. He said, we can tell here this was obviously illicit activity that wasn't from you. He made me give him a separate email address and everything to kind of do some security stuff. He made me answer a butt ton of questions that most people probably wouldn't ask, but I really wanted my account back, so I went ahead and I answered them. And the next thing you know, I get an email and it says, hey, I went ahead, I got you all set up, we got your security all set up again, you're good to go, welcome back. Which was really cool. Now, I don't have my I had a lifetime EVE account attached to this, and that's gone, but that's okay, because, I mean, I haven't been here and I haven't been doing anything for them as a fan reporter and stuff, so I get that. I'll have to earn that again. But the fact that they reinstated this account, that was a real positive. That was a real positive for me. So I want to give kudos to those guys for that. Some of those GMs, they work their asses off. Okay, and while a lot of people don't have good experiences with them, I actually had a good experience, and I wanted to bring that up. So, yeah, you can't. Rob's right. You can't get me to shut up. That's usually the hard part. So, but the cool thing is if I can get Cypher on here with me at some point where we can kind of do a split screen thing, then the fun part is you'll have me talking bullshit and have Cypher talking about things who actually knows about EVE, and he'll actually be able to inject some interesting stuff in there. So let me go back down. So customer support, they got a hard job, and some of the stuff they got to do, I get that it's just they can't. Somebody needs something done, that something weird happened. Account got stolen, or they lost their stuff, or whatever. Or they got conned, and the GMs have to say sorry. Them's the breaks. But I had a good experience with them, and I wanted to point that out. Server performance and tech issues. Not even going to talk about that. That's been an issue forever. Alright, let me see what else. Real quick, I want to talk about something. This is a total aside. Something that drives me nuts with being part of a large EVE Online alliance. On one of my other characters, I'm part of the Pandemic guys. Alright, as a new bro in there, because I want to try that experience with them. And everyone's really cool. The people are awesome. Alright, people are awesome. But when you're part of these big alliances, you have to like download 4 different types of software. You have to set up all this special shit in voice chat servers with all these special whispers and farts and nose pickers and this and that setting. And then you have to go to their website and register your API, which tells them everything, including like your mother's underwear size. And they're going to track everything you do to make sure you're not a spy. And all. It becomes, it's like getting a job. It becomes such a hassle sometimes to do this. It's a hassle. And I've been through this now with nullsec groups probably, I don't know, over the past 14 years, probably 10 times. Right? Some groups multiple times as I went left and came back, left and came back. But like you're setting this up and then they want you to set this up and then you have to go into Discord and you have to set this up and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There has got to be, and I don't know what it is, I'm just saying, there's got to be easier ways to do this stuff. And I get it. Tracking and coordinating thousands of players in a player-run alliance is tough. I totally understand that. I get it, and I agree that there has to be controls and there has to be all other stuff. But holy cow, if you're a new player and all you want to do, and I'm like saying, like for these new guys coming in and they get into one of the big alliances and they're all enamored by the fact that these people have their own portion of the game that is completely owned by them. And that you can do all this stuff, this specialty mining and this and that. And then you get in, they're like, great, come on out. And then you start looking at the requirements. All right, now I got to go to their website. I got to register this. I got to go find an API. What the fuck's an API? How do I authorize this? Okay, now Discord. Oh crap, I don't have a mic. Okay, what do I got to do about this? All right, now I can't touch this button when I'm in here because if I do that, somebody will hear me and they'll yell at me and they'll tell me get the fuck out or shut up or mute me. It's crazy. There needs to be the alliances need to make an easier way to do that too. Like, start with one finger, guys. Work your way up to a fist. Okay, ease guys into that kind of stuff. Ease them into it. So, Rob's getting into his goons. Cypher says, in all honesty, CCP customer service when you get to a GM is damn good and they will work with you. He's absolutely right. Just taking a step back toward that. I've really never had a bad experience with, I say that, but once about 7 years ago on one of our podcasts, it was a Podside episode where I was talking to the GMs about something, and they blew me off. And it was weird because I brought it up on the Podside episode. I was like, guys, I just had a really bad experience, blah, 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 and it was a live thing. I mean, people are in the chat room in Eve, in our chat room, and next thing I know, one of the CCP guys is sending me a private chat request. And he was like, hey, I was just in there listening to your show, and I heard what happened. Can you give me some more information and your ticket number? And I did, and he was like, okay, on Monday morning when I get into the office, I'll address this. And I was like, yeah, okay, great, whatever. And lo and behold, by Monday, evening, I had late evening, so it would have been early morning Tuesday for them, I had resolution. Because somebody went and said, and it wasn't just like, hey, this podcaster's shit talking us. It was, hey, this isn't right. That's not how we handle this. And it got fixed. Fantastic. So, that's fantastic. So getting back to the CSM stuff, it says ship and module balance. I am not going to go into this one, guys. It was a 2-hour back and forth conversation that the CSM had. It starts on page 25 of the 53-page notes. They talk about capitals. They talk about fighters. They talk about Rorquals. Repping, so stuff like that. They talk about all kinds of stuff. Hicks, chain bushing, the Loki, the Fearox. They go into a bunch of stuff. It's just, at this time, I'm not going to go into the individual parts of it because it's not worth it. They talk about sovereign fleet warfare. CCP Fozzie starts by stating that this session is about sovereignty mechanics, fleet warfare, and look at how server performance affects and is affected by these mechanics. One option CCP Fozzie is considering changing the timer on Doomsdays to prevent tethering for the same duration as it prevents jumping. CSM is unanimous about this being a good change. Okay, if you're not into large sovereignty and huge fleet warfare, this probably makes absolutely no sense to you. Just know that they're working on things for the real big battles. I'm sure Cypher, if he's still in the chat room, can tell you. He can tell you how, with time dilation and shit like that throughout the years, large battles when they happen, they're usually not planned, right? Okay, it's not like hey, your team's going to meet up with my team at 8 o'clock Eastern time and we're going to hash it out. It's somebody sees an opportunity and they warp a fleet in to take advantage of something, and then reinforcements come in on the defender side, and the attackers bringing in more, and the defenders bringing in more, and attackers and defenders, and it grows into this huge beast. And next thing you know, the time dilation would kick in, and these battles could last for hours with thousands of people being involved, which is actually quite epic and amazing. The problem is if you're into the flashy graphics of a computer game during a battle, EVE Online is not the game for you for that. When you get to this point, you're going to be zooming out your screen so far that everything is just a little marker on a black map with rings. That's it. I mean, at that point, it becomes it's like one big math problem. Is all it is. It's like a plot board. If those of us who've been in the military, I was in the Navy on submarines. It's a plot board. You're basically looking at a sand table of the battle, and that's how you're going to have to really view it. Now, that's not to say the guy in the Rifter who's helping to do some tackling and whatnot can't just stay in local mode. That's not what that's saying. But for the most part, if you're on the logistics team or whatever, you're in a capital or maybe a subcap and you're involved in this stuff, you're pretty much just doing math problems at that point, trying to make sure you stay alive long enough to do some damage and get your team into the winning position. So the fact that they're looking at all this is pretty good. CCP Habakkuk goes on to say that audio has a huge impact on client FPS during fights, and audio upgrade is being deployed, which will hopefully help this. Jintan asks about the limit on the amount of sounds being played at the same time, which is discussed in the past, which is not something the team itself is responsible for. So anyway, they're working on it. Next topic was Upwell structures. This situation was to present new structure work and discuss any issues related to Upwell structures in general. I'm skimming real quick, guys. Not even going to go into this. Not even going to talk about it right now. It starts on page 34 if you want to read it. Structures Part 2. Balance pass with team size matters. Community session talks about tournaments and community stuff in general. The fan site program is also something they want to update and modernize. When they have time, the community team wants to increase what they do for and with streamers. All these programs need to be run in a meaningful and substantial way. Connecting EVE and Twitch through the SSO is being looked into. Jintan asks about connecting EVE and Discord, which was investigated previously. Anyway, they're going to be doing stuff like that. They're going to be working on things to increase cooperation between those of us out here who like to show off the game and the actual game itself. Activity tracker, the name is not finalized. What's this? To show off the new activity tracker. The tracker shows the most common activities and breaks them down. Okay. I don't know about that. Agency and Fleet Finder. You know, Fleet Finder is one of those things. Has anyone out there actually ever used it? I mean, do any of you guys ever try to do a pug in EVE? I've never, ever, ever in my life tried to do a pickup group in EVE. Like, I've never been... Okay, well, we'll Care Bear it for a minute. I've never been, like, in a belt mining and somebody else comes in with a mining vessel and I'm like, hey, bro, you want to team up and we'll just sit here and mine together? I mean, I've never done that. I mean, I guess that's a way to make friends in the game. But I've also never used, like, the Fleet Finder or anything like that, other than within, like, I found fleets in the corporation and the alliance that I was already in, but that really doesn't count. So, I don't know. What kind of... Jintan talks about, due to how high-sec is currently in the game, you can't really get involved in corporations due to the war deck system. We already talked about that. He'd want to see the Fleet Finder be based on location to make it more helpful to new players, to give boosts to miners as an example, and create a more social environment. I see benefits and drawbacks to that, guys. The way I see it is, if you decide, if you got a bunch of people out there, okay, let's talk about the advantage of this, and this is all coming from the new bro high sec, the alpha guys that are coming in from their point of view. So a couple guys are out there mining in a belt in point 0.6 space or whatever, and they team up. They use the Fleet Finder and they team up together and for mutual protection and benefit. And some other guy says, "Hey, let me join up. I got a porpoise or whatever, and I can come in and I can fleet boost you guys." And comes in and starts helping out with that. Well, what that also did was that on the other side of that is now we've got the guys that go out there and intentionally try to join those groups so they can on their alt so they can tell their corp, "Hey, okay, I got one. Come on out to this location and you know you can hit a whale." So, that's always going to be a problem is the sneakiness of that. But on the other side is going to be the advantage of that's how that's how new corporations are going to get formed. That's how groups are going to start up that do things. That's how we're going to get groups that start doing instead of just the old names that we're used to, the Goons, Test, all that, which fantastic. Those guys have been around for years and they keep this game going. But the new corps and alliances that pop up are going to be the guys that meet each other in game, right? The only people I play with in EVE are people that I've known now for close to a decade. I don't meet new people in EVE. I really don't. And is that because of me or is that because of the way EVE is set up? I'd say it's probably a little bit of both. Those of us who've been playing for a while, we're a little bit salty and we get wary around newer people in the game because we don't know how they're going to react. And we don't know what they're, are they really new people or are they just trying to look to jack us and screw us over? Is this a con? What is it? But at the same time, some of us have been playing long time and don't want to take the effort to teach new people. I'm not saying that's me. I don't really have much to teach new people other than let me show you how to sit in a belt and mine while you do a podcast. So, or I can introduce people to other people. That would be it. I'm like your skill connections 3. I can introduce you to other people in the game. That's about it. And maybe help you get to where you need to go. But then you've got groups like EVE University who have tried to do this, who have trying to give new people a way to connect and find their way within the EVE universe. And for some it's real successful, and for many others it's just because of the war decking system, it's just not even freaking worth it. Cypher says, "I use my fleet finder all the time because there are like 30 fleets in Goon Swarm at all times." Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it makes sense if you're in a large alliance. That's where I could see it being helpful. Your inter-alliance, your inter-corporation fleet finders. I get it. But for like the newer people, right? The newer folks, it's just I don't see it being very, very helpful. CCP Optimal says that this would be a means of advertising the concept of fleets to players through the agency, but ultimately the agency will not be responsible for the gameplay content itself, right? It's kind of a weird situation to be in. Killa B asks if fleet location could be added to the agency map. CCP Psychonomy? Psycho-homny? Psycho? Whatever. CCP Psycho says that this is something they'd want to avoid showing. He wants to revamp the agency to guide players to activity and then go from there with fleets. I get that. If you can just see where the fleets are at, now you can start jumping people. I get it. Next section I'm going down to is wormholes and faction warfare. I'm probably going to skip this for right now simply because faction warfare is something, as I said before, that's near and dear to my heart. And the way I'm seeing faction warfare right now is it's not as fun as it used to be a few years ago. And it's a bit broken. Now, I know there's some people out there that are going to tell me I'm full of shit, and that's because the Amar are not doing as well as they used to, and that I'm salty because of that. No, it really has nothing to do with that. Faction warfare was something that could have been really, really, really fun. Okay? They could have done so much with it. Faction warfare, you could have had faction warfare corporations and alliance come in and drop structures in low-sec space and say that we're going to hold this zone, it's ours, and we're going to make it ours and actually kind of live there, and it's not working out the way it should. It really just isn't working out the way it should. And they even say that addressing the issue with structures in faction warfare space is something which has no real solution right now. So the part of the problem with having a game as old and as large as EVE Online is that there's so much going on in here that sometimes whole aspects of the game become orphaned because they get left behind with everything else that's happening. So, and I kind of see faction warfare again has been orphaned, which was when we started TE and Evening News all those years ago. That's when faction warfare, they were talking about fixing it. We got on board. We helped promote it. I'm not saying that I was a driver in that, but I definitely was someone who was an advocate for it. And when it got going, it was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of people enjoying it. Lots of thousands of people enjoying it. And now it seems like it's kind of gone back to the old way where it's been kind of put on a shelf and forgotten about, because it's not nullsec where the majority of the players are that are hardcore, and it's not highsec where the majority of the new players and the casual players live. Excuse me, mouth was a little dry. So that's something we're going to get into in another episode completely, is talking about factional warfare. And the wormhole thing, I'm gonna have to bring somebody in who does wormholes to talk more about that. I got a couple buddies in here that own their own wormholes, and we'll bring them in and have them talk about the effects. They talked about player gathering starting on page 48. We're kind of wrapping this up now, wrapping up the CSM stuff before we go into our other topics. Player gatherings, they did talk about. Let's see here. He wants to give an update on the EVE on tour. For those of you that don't know what that means, is the EVE Fan Fest is not just going to be a Reykjavik thing anymore. It's not always going to be in Iceland. They're going to kind of move it around the globe and give more people an opportunity to go. I think that's a brilliant idea. While I absolutely loved Reykjavik, cool city, and the people at CCP put on a fantastic show with that. They put on, it's a good time. It's a good idea to move it around, right? So it looks like they've got next year around May, they've got Amsterdam coming, EVE Amsterdam. EVE London will be in the last quarter of the year. They're going to have a pub, keeping the theme of a pub meet, just massive pub meet. That's going to be interesting. There's EVE Vegas. They're talking about CCP Guard and CCP Curtis are both going to G Fleet in Berlin in October, and are looking to make Berlin a part of the plan for next year. EVE Down Under is also mentioned. That would be fun to go to. They're talking about an East Coast North American one. The idea of possibly an event in Florida is discussed. They need to come here to Texas. We'll have some fun with that shit. CCP Curtis talking about FanFest Home, which is a video competition. CCP Guard jokes that this is an idea which can go wrong with so many ways, but should be fun. Anyway, they're talking about all these different things they can do in different areas of the country. It's fantastic. In different areas of the globe. It's fantastic. Let's see here. There was some talk about in the CSM notes about the localization for the Chinese content and whatnot. That really doesn't interest me too much. Other than I hope they don't. I hope it doesn't flood our shit. Because it's hard enough watching all the Russians talk in chat, in local chat. But let's see here. Recruitment program and marketing projects. There's some things in there. What's this? CCP mentions that the 250,000 skill point gift was massive for alpha accounts. Yeah, that's pretty much it. After that, they kind of closed up the summit. Nothing in here that's really... And finally, a customary recipe, feijoada. I don't know what that is. It has black beans, and I wouldn't touch that. So, that's pretty much how the CSM rolled this year. Now, again, let me say this for you guys. If you really have an interest in EVE, and you think EVE is something that's worth your time, worth your energy, and that the community is something that's worth your attention, consider running for the CSM. It's hard for independents to win in there. It really is. You would have to have a really strong message and a bunch of people out there that are willing to step up and put your name out there and help you with it. But and that's all metagame stuff. Usually the majority of the people in the CSM are from the large voting blocks. Nullsec groups, Nullsec alliances, high-sec, Care Bear groups, things like that. But that's okay because it's equal representation, okay? It's not like the goons are sending, 6 representatives, okay? I'm using them as an example. I'm not picking on the goons. So you can't really pick on goons, though, because they don't get it. It doesn't register with them. But cue customary slam from Cypher. But if it's something that's near and dear to your heart, do it. There's been YouTubers and bloggers and guys like that have been able to get onto the CSM and try to make a difference. You've had um, mercenary corporation leaders that got on there. Alex Carden, that was his whole thing. He wanted to get on there because he wanted to fix the War Deck system because it was broke as shit. And he got on and he affected some change with that because he was such a loud voice for it. And he also has his podcast as well that he did and all that stuff. So he was able to, make some forward movement because he really cared, right? So there's people out there in the history of EVE Online who have been able to do this. I guarantee you, if you ask somebody in World of Warcraft who the big movers and shaker players are, they're going to say Leroy fucking Jenkins, and that's it. You don't know who those people are. There's too many of them, and all the players are anonymous. Because there is no system where somebody goes to Blizzard as a representative of the players and talks about things that the players want. EVE has that. CCP has created that. So if that's something you are interested in, do it. Step up and do it. It takes work. This is like running a political campaign. I'm not even shitting you. I've run for political office here in Texas, okay? And it sucks up time. I've also made a nominal run at the CSM, right? I put in for it. And then when I saw how much work it was going to be, I was like, man, I've already done something like this before. Am I saying it's just like running for political office in real life? Not exactly, but we're talking about it as a simulation of it, and it's a damn good simulation of it. Because you don't have to do things in game to become a CSM member. You don't have to go do missions or mine ore or blow up other ships. What you have to do is you have to get other people who are playing this game to agree to go to a website and vote for you. To go in and click a button that says, I want so-and-so on the Council of Stellar Management. I want them representing me at the CSM. You actually have to get people to do that. And without stepping up and actually doing something, that's near impossible to do. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to put out, little in-game ads probably. You're going to have to be going to groups like the Imperial News Network and EVE News 24 and podcasts and streamers and asking if you can get on there and talk about your stuff so that you can get your message out to other people. You're going to have a cohesive message to do that. So these guys that stepped up, while some of them are shitheads and they're there simply because they're a part of some big alliance and they said, okay, this person's going to be our representative this year. Very well. However, for the people that really care and want to make a change with this, they put the effort in to do it. And you can do that too. I'm not trying to do some CSM recruiting message here. I'm just stating a fact. You can do it if you really wanted to. I mean, you can run. Doesn't mean you'll necessarily win. But it's worth giving a try. It's definitely worth giving a try. Hey, if you guys are hanging out in our chat room on Twitch, on the Twitch stream right now, please consider throwing a follow for me. It really appreciate that. That helps me get this message out. So that's it for the CSM. Now we're going to talk about a couple of the news things that popped up this week. Let's see here. First one that popped up. I'm going through various news sites right now, so some of these are tainted by biased opinion. Okay, it may be fake news. I don't have the hair for it, sorry. It says here, this came out yesterday. It was reported in via EVE News 24. Okay, those crazy-ass people over there. It says, Bomber Bar whelps 5 goon Rorquals. A successful Bomber Bar operation leaves 5 Rorquals, contributed building materials in a different manner as salvage. So it looks like the Bomber Bar guys got in and... Let's see, 7.14 billion, 4.52 billion, 8.88 billion, 4, 8, 12, 20, 4, 31, 32, about 33 billion in Rorqual and gear lost and whatever else. So, let's see here. I'm trying to find out how many bombers were there. They said there's about 90 plus bombers that came in. So, from Bombers Bar, which, hey, I don't care what alliance you're part of. I don't care what corporation you're part of. The Bombers Bar project is actually really cool. Alright, it's something that's pretty neat. They will go and they will blow up. It doesn't matter who's out there. They're going to blow them up. And stealth bombers have always been something I love. I think they're cool as hell. So, kudos to the Bomber Bar group that took down the 5 Rorquals. I'm sure that made for some butt hurting yesterday and today. So, way to EVE, guys. Way to EVE. So, let's see. Cypher just said, this is what I've been doing of late. for friends and 5M roleplay. Okay, I'll take a look after the stream, Cypher. And whatever it is, as long as it's as long as it's healthy, go ahead. Everybody else, give it a click too. Take a look. Anyway, we go some more through some more of this news. And I'm not going through every headline, guys. Just the ones that kind of caught me as interesting. If you haven't seen that last week, it's almost a week ago. The October release went live. Here's the quick list. ECM, electronic countermeasures, substantial changed. Jammed targets may lock the source of the gem at all times. ECM sources affected by this release: ECM target jammers, all 4 types, ECM drones, and NPCs utilizing ECM. Number 2, warp disruption field generators have had their thrust penalty and mass reduction removed. Number 3, interdiction nullification has been removed from combat interceptors Claw, Crusader, Raptor, and Tyrannus, while the Crow's agility reduced from 3.25 to 3.7. Number 4, the Damavik trades a low slot, reducing from 4 to 3, for a mid slot, increasing from 2 to 3, after community feedback identified the cause of lower than expected usage. Okay, see, and again, this is the development team listening. So they're noticing that a particular type of ship is not being used as often as it should. Then they start trying to figure out why, and when they start talking fittings and whatnot, they figure something out and they make a change. Now we'll see if that changes things and it starts getting used more, right? Triglavian bioadaptive cache moved from large collidable structure group to precursor cache group. Okay, that's for those guys that run those missions and stuff. Those run the rooms. The AOE damage on a Titan class hull is death removed, which should increase performance, and visual fixes and improvements as usual. So that's what we got going on right there. That was in the latest patch. Let's see here. On Saturday, October 6th, the Forge system. This is by Navy Man, who submitted this over to Eve News 24 again. But this is just something interesting because we've been talking about war decks and high-sec and whatnot. The headline reads, Marquee Dragon and Miners defend 5 stations. Saturday, October 6th, the Forge system of Ukoshi saw a fairly large conflict, at least for high-sec. Marquee Dragon and his Borka alliance have been war-decked, and today they oversaw the defense of 5 upwell structures. When asked for comment on the current war, Marquee Dragon stated, which one? We have 8. And a quick check confirms that there are 8 current war decks, 2 set to expire today and 9 pending. A list of the war decking parties is provided below. Outer Space Pirates, Orphan, let's see here, 8th Paradise, Pierce and Pierce Dot, Pirate, Final Ultimatum, Unity Purged Alliance. So anyway, again, just we're constantly talking now about the war decks and whatnot popping up, especially for the high sec groups. It's definitely got to be overhauled. I'm not saying they need to go away. It just needs to be sane. It just needs to be a sane system. Let's see here. I don't really have anything else. Oh, you know what? There is something that came up last month that we're just going to touch on real quick because it is something that's kind of hanging out there for a month now, and while it's being talked about, I don't know. I want to know what you guys think about it. So the whole Black Desert Online guys, the Pearl Abyss, acquiring CCP games. What do you guys think? I know some people are like, oh, I'm sick of talking about it. Oh, I'm sick of thinking about it. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? What are your feelings on it? See, I'm looking at it as it's like a juggling act with the emotions of it. Because number one, it could be a good thing, an injection of cash, an injection of the ability to advertise more, maybe a fresh look at things. Okay, because I don't like Black Desert Online. I tried playing it and I just thought it sucked. But people love it, and not just Koreans. I mean, there's people all over the Western Hemisphere that love Black Desert Online. I don't know, it's just I don't mind grindy, but it was really grindy, and it was just a little too Asian for me. Okay, just I couldn't connect with everything that was going on in it, and that's not a slam. It's just different culture and whatnot. And how the Koreans like their games like Black Desert Online. I don't necessarily like my games like that. But with this injection of cash, this new overseer of CCP, What do you guys think? Is this gonna is Eve Online gonna go the way of the dodo because they're gonna kill it, or do you think they're gonna honor their commitment, saying that CCP will remain an independent house within their mansion, the Pearl Abyss mansion, and allow them to do things their way as long as they're being profitable? Right? That's always going to be the key. The second that CCP becomes no longer in the black, then the second they go into the red, it's they're going to send in their own development team and whatnot. Or they're going to cut them loose, one of the two. So, and with Eve being 14 years old, 15 years old, it's kind of like walking a tightrope where would they just be, if something did happen, would they just be cut loose to go do their own thing, or would they say, okay, it's run its course and shut it down, right? We've seen that with games in the past as well. So I'm just curious to what you guys think. What's going to happen with this? I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess is the way I'm going to say it. Okay, I'm cautiously optimistic. I will continue paying for my 5 accounts every month that I have, and until the point where Eve is no longer fun, or if I see something that looks like the writing on the wall is it's going bad, and then I'll cut loose. I've been having fun in some other games at the same time. I mean, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Damn, that game is good. Damn, that's a good game. Oh, wow. If you're a fan of old school Assassin's Creed, you will not like Odyssey. But if you like a little more role play in your element and some character development with actual skills and stuff, it's the game for you. I really enjoy it. And naval warfare, and it's amazing. I've been playing a bit of what's it called, the Skull and Bones. I'm hoping that game actually becomes a thing. Okay, I know that there's been talk about it not actually releasing with everything that it's supposed to because of all the problems they've had, but I like it. It's basically the naval warfare of Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, and Odyssey, but better, and put into it's a pirate thing, but it's not Caribbean. It's more like it's Asian islands, like the Spice Islands. Okay, so East India Company, Portuguese, stuff like that. But anyway, it's there's other games out there that you can always go to, but Eve has got a special place in my heart. Cypher says Korean MMO in space. Maybe we'll get Walking in Station's Korean version. You know what, man? I've said this in the past. I wouldn't mind having Walking in Stations, but if Walking in Stations, or even in your ship, like kind of not necessarily around the whole ship, but even like a pilot view type of thing, like we have with like in what's it called? Like ED or Elite Dangerous, or what's that other game that never releases but they just keep sucking up everybody's money? Star Citizen, right? That's a great scam, by the way. Whoever thought, that guy that thought that up, Roberts, whatever his name is, that is the most brilliant scam on gamers I've ever seen. He's been milking money out of his gamers for 10 years and they still haven't released a viable product. And people just hand him money. He's like a cult leader. That's just amazing to me. But like the ability to see your pilot and see around your cockpit, kind of like the Eve Valkyrie thing that they wanted to do, that just really didn't work out because VR turned out not to be that great. Yeah, so I mean, I would rather see the talent and effort CCP's putting into things like that, and rather see them put it into something like improving what we actually have right here, fixing some of the systems. You know what else would be cool? And I know people are going to throw frickin' tomatoes at me for saying this. Cypher's probably going to throw tomatoes. I wish they would have paid attention to and revamped Dust 514. I wish that they would have made that game viable. I loved the concept of Dust 514. That's why we got TEN Evening News started. Originally, we were a Dust 514 podcast. When it was in beta and getting ready to release, we were all over that. We thought that Dust 514 was going to be the shit. The fact that you were going to be able to tie these two games together, where we could park someone in our corp up in space with a like a subcap and put it in bombardment mode, right? And then we could be on the ground with our squad taking over factories, and they're sending in air support for us. And then at the end of the match, if we've won it, we won that sector, and now our corp gets those resources or whatever, or for faction warfare, our faction takes that planet. I thought that was the next step in Eve becoming like the main sci-fi game on the market. And it just, Dust 514 was so clunky. It was so hard. I mean, even just shooting in that game was hard. And they never ported it over to PC because they wanted to bring. I understand what Hilmar was doing. His thought behind that was, I want to get the console people playing a console game that supports the Eve PC players and vice versa. But he could have made that a PC game, and I think it would have done so much better. I mean, I would have had it up on two screens. I would have had my ship in space doing bombardments on one screen, and then over here I would have been having my Dust 514 as I'm doing my fighting. Yeah, a lot of us would do that, but a lot of us multi-box. A lot of the old school guys multi-box in this game. I don't even know what Cypher's doing. It just says FB block. I don't know what that means, dude. You're confusing me, Rob. But Dust 514 to me was something that they dropped the ball on. Okay, and then when they acquired White Wolf Games, famous for the Vampire the Masquerade role-playing games and all that, and then they wanted to do walking in stations, and they got everyone excited about that, and they showed all these cool videos about it, and then that just never happened. Well, it happened and then it went away, right? Like, it never really happened. That's the football block to your Dust. Oh yeah, I know, man. I know you're not a big fan of it. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of projects. There's some good vision. There's always been some good vision coming out of CCP. They're looking down the road, but then the things they're looking at, it's like you're talking about things that either the community just isn't ready for yet, or technology isn't ready for yet, or it's not viable at this time. But if they can fix war decking, if we could fix the shit going on in high sec, where it's got to be more fun for new players. It's got to be more fun for new players, and without the griefing. I'm not saying a total Care Bear bubble with no PvP, but there's got to be. And this is a discussion that's been going on for 15 years with this game. There's got to be a way to do it that gives new players enough time that it's the whole pinky versus the fist, like I was saying. There's got to be a decent enough amount of time where there's a pinky and no fist, because people just get really upset when they get into a game and they download it and they spend all this time and they do all the new player experience through Aurora and the agency, and they get all their little things, and they get in their Argos or whatever, their first little their catalyst, and then the next thing they know, they're out doing their own thing, and they decided to explore a little bit more, and they're like, number one, this world is way, way, way too big, it's overwhelming, and number two, every time I turn around, I want to go do something. I'm afraid somebody's going to kill me. I'm a new player, and I just bought this really cool ship that I like, so I fly over to a trade hub to get it. And as I come out, I got people harassing me, or I join a corp because I want friends to play with, and then I don't know any better, and I join this little tiny corp, and 2 minutes later I'm war decked, and I'm losing my ships, and I'm brand new to this, and so there's got to be a middle ground there. So, anyway, looks like we've been going for an hour and a half, and I'm about to wrap this up now. I want to thank you guys that came out and enjoyed the stream. I'll be doing another one here on Thursday night. I will put the schedule up. I'll put it right in the stream bio here. But yeah, we'll be getting this going. Hold on one second. Let me pull something up here. So if you guys are interested, there's not many of us hang out in there anymore, but it is still up. There is the TEN Evening News chat channel inside of EVE Online. You can go in there. They're usually, like I said, until we build the community back up, there's not going to be a lot of people hanging out in there, but usually a couple of us will be in there once in a while. But that's a way if we're in doing the stream and you want to be in the game listening to this in the background, but you still want to participate in chat, you can chat right through the EVE client, right through the TEN Evening News chat window there, inside the chat channel, and I'll see it there before I actually see it on Twitch, because Twitch is on a separate screen whereas I got Eve right in front of me, so I'd see your question or comment pop up right in there. And it's a good way to connect with the rest of the community as well. We'll be doing giveaways. Believe it or not, I still have tucked away on one of my deep dark alt accounts a few billion in ships and iskies that we'll be doing as we get more followers. People are clicking that follow button. People are coming and joining us in here. We'll do contests for giveaways. So the more you participate, the more you're more likely to win. So again, I thank you guys for popping in here today. Please click that follow button. It really helps me out. And we'll continue this again on Thursday evening. I'll post that schedule as I said, and we will talk about what's going on. And I will try to schedule for next week's on next Monday. I'm going to be doing an interview with someone from Eve. I'm not going to say who yet because I'm waiting for the confirmation from them. But I'm going to be interviewing someone to talk about some different topics that are near and dear to the heart of all of us Eve players. So I encourage you to be there. So until then, thank you all very much, and you have a nice day. Fly safe out there, guys. Rob, you're gay.